Episode 203, which is called Lupercalia, starts off with Sabrina and her friends from the academy dancing at one of the clubs. I think this is Dorian's club. And they're just kind of having a good time. Then they start talking about Lupercalia. It's basically the equivalent of Valentine's Day for the witch community. It's a bit more sexual, though, in nature. It kind of culminates into like a big orgy. Ambrose is making out with Prudence, and Sabrina even says something about what will Luke think, and he says, he's out of town. And I guess this thing between Ambrose and Prudence is an actual thing now. But, it's kind of weird, this whole scene was, I thought, just because, I don't know, they were just being so sexual in front of Sabrina. I just thought it was weird. Back home, Sabrina's kind of asking her aunts about pretty much everything that goes on during Lupercalia, and Zelda's very into it. She's talking about how it's just, really lusty, and, Sabrina should just go for it, while Hilda is more like, if you're not ready for this, you should just, you don't have to partake in it. It's not, you don't have to. Sabrina even says something about being a virgin and how she doesn't know if she's ready for it, and Hilda is kind of, telling her that's fine, you do what you want to do. Whereas Zelda's like, just go for it, go for it, have fun, do what you want to do. And it's, I don't know, it was just kind of funny because you've got these two different reactions. And I thought it was interesting because last season, Zelda was so much against the fact that Harvey and Sabrina would do anything together. So now she's really changed her tune now that Sabrina signed the book. Sabrina is upstairs in her bedroom when Nick astral projects into her room, and they have this little scene where he tells her, there's really no pressure for them to do anything. Everything is at her own speed. If they end up, doing something together, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too. He just basically wants to be her Valentine. At Baxter High, we have a scene where Harvey gives Roz a Valentine that he drew, and he starts to ask her to this sweetheart's dance that they're having, but before he can really ask her, she says that she's going with Theo, but they should all go as friends. And although both of them kind of understand what's going on here, they kind of gloss over it and decide to just kind of all three go together. Meanwhile, at the academy, there's this scene where the men kind of sit in the chairs, and the women do this kind of dance around them with like these strings and of material and stuff like that. And pretty much it made me kind of think of musical chairs. When the music stopped, whoever's lap that you ended up on is the person you're paired with for Lupercalia. And Dorcas, which is one of the weird sisters, has already put state claim on Nick, and so they kind of start doing this dance. It was kind of an interesting little scene, but towards the end of it, Dorcas basically pushes Sabrina out of the way to get to Nick's lap, and she thinks she's won. Well, it turns out that Nick paid this guy like $100 to do a glamour to look like him, so Sabrina still ends up with Nick during this, much to Dorcas's dismay. At Dr. Cerberus's, Hilda's kind of talking to him about that something might have happened between them. She just kind of wants to follow up on that because she does have feelings for him, and he pretty much just shuts her down. Roz goes to Sabrina and kind of tells her what's going on between her and Harvey, just to kind of get her blessing, and Sabrina seems to be very okay with it. I know there's been a couple scenes before this episode where she did not seem that okay with it, but she seems to be in a good place with it. She pretty much gives Roz her blessing, tells her she's kind of into someone else, talking about Nick, and that they have plans for Valentine's Day. After this, you had a really quick scene where Theo is trying to more or less come out to his father, and basically the father is kind of wanting Susie to, go to the dance, wear a pretty dress. Theo tells him, no, I feel like I identify as a male. And I was kind of surprised with how okay the dad seemed, just because he kind of seems a little old-fashioned, I guess. But this scene kind of went off without a hitch, so everything seems to be alright. And then Theo's like, why don't you take me to get a haircut? After this, you have a scene where Sabrina and Nick kind of go into the woods as part of this Lupercalia ritual, where they're basically going to spend the night laying naked next to each other. They do encourage abstinence during this, but they're supposed to kind of anoint each other with certain oils and like blood and stuff like that. It was a little strange, like, because they don't actually get naked, which I didn't know if that was just, for the show, or I don't know. But anyways, they kind of had this little conversation, and then as they're kind of, talking and stuff like that, they hear a wolf howl, and they're trying to figure out where that came from, but it sounds like it's close, so they kind of get freaked out and they end up leaving the woods. Back at the Spellman house, Nick and Sabrina are kind of making out, not really going inside yet, but after that, Nick tells her, why don't we just kind of blow this off, this Lupercalia, let's just celebrate Mortal Valentine's Day. And he says, why don't we just do what you would normally do? And she says, well, there's a dance at school. And he says, sure, let's do that. So they intend to go to the Sweethearts dance at Baxter High. The next day at Baxter High, Lilith is in her office, and this man shows up out of nowhere, and he appears to be very familiar with who he thinks is Miss Wardwell. And come to find out, he's actually Miss Wardwell's fiance, Adam, who's a doctor. He's been away with basically at Doctors Without Borders, but they call it something else. And so she's trying to figure out who exactly this man is. Sabrina runs into Harvey in the halls, and they kind of have this awkward scene where she tells him, she asks if it'd be okay if she comes to the Sweethearts dance with Nick, and he kind of tells her it's fine, he's going to bring Roz. But, there's still this tension between them, this animosity. He's still obviously very upset with her. Nick shows up at the Spellman house to pick up Sabrina for the Valentine's Day dance, and Hilda comes out and she's all dressed up. She's basically going to kind of not take no for an answer with Dr. Servius. She's going to go there and I guess try to seduce him. This scene was kind of funny to me because Zelda keeps telling her something about, you're a huntress, go after him. I just thought it was really funny. Hilda shows up at Dr. Servius's, and she's trying to seduce him, and he's obviously very uncomfortable, and he kind of turns around telling her to leave, and she won't leave, and he turns around, and he's some kind of monster, some kind of demon. After that, you have some scenes at the dance, and I have to give this show credit. They really could be stringing out the love triangle, and I mean, don't get me wrong, they are doing some things with the love triangle here between Harvey, Nick, and Sabrina, and, tossing in Roz for good measure. But, the couples appear to be happy with each other. There's this scene where they're slow dancing, and in any other teen show, I think both, probably Harvey and Sabrina would be glancing at each other, doing these dramatic looks, longing for each other, and they didn't really have that. It was kind of refreshing. If anything, they just showed Sabrina watching Harvey and Roz, and she looked happy for them. She didn't look upset. She just looked happy for her friends. And Roz was kind of watching Sabrina and Nick and kind of doing the same thing. And I thought that was very different for a teen show, just because teen shows love their romantic drama and anything, we can toss in there. Now, I may eat these words later, and there may be something more later on in the series, but right now it seems to be very easygoing. Theo's at the dance as well, and Billy, the jock that had been bullying Theo, shows up, basically kind of apologizes. I was kind of surprised at this scene, but I don't know where they're really going with this, other than just, this guy's trying to make amends for what he's done. While they're dancing, Harvey goes to kiss Roz, and she kind of backs away, and she tells him she's already seen this happen. And he's kind of like, what are you talking about? And she tells him she needs to talk to him. Elsewhere in the library, Sabrina and Nick are getting a little cozy on the couch, and they start to hear the wolf sounds again. Turns out there is some form of, to me it looked like a werewolf after them. I mean, the CGI was really bad though. It really kind of looked like something that Buffy would pull back in, the late 90s, early 2000s. It didn't hold up very well, I didn't think. But this werewolf is kind of trying to attack them, and they get away from it, and Miss Wardwell's there, and Nick basically kind of opens up to Sabrina about the fact that he does know who this werewolf is. It turns out it's his familiar, and I guess the older he's gotten, the familiar has gotten more possessive, and he feels like it may be threatening Sabrina's life. Out in the hall, Roz is kind of explaining to Harvey that she does see visions. He just basically wants to know, are you a witch? And she says no, she's not a witch. She just, she has these visions. Her family has been cursed by a witch, and she wants to be completely transparent with him. She wants him to know everything, no secrets. And he tells her, he's okay with that. He likes the fact that she wants to tell him all about her. And then they do finally end up kissing. The following day, Nick and Sabrina are in the woods, and Nick's he's decided he's going to kill his familiar. There's really no other way to get around this. It's presenting so much danger, and you don't really see it, but he kind of goes off into the woods. He comes back, he's got like a bloody hatchet, and he's got like the heart in his bag. Like I said, you didn't really see it, so I definitely had my suspicions at this point. Dr. Cerberus shows up at the Spellman mortuary, and he tells Hilda that he's basically an incubus. And then she, of course, in turn tells him that she's a witch. Zelda shows up, and she tells Hilda that Father Blackwood has proposed to her, and she intends to accept his proposal. Not necessarily for love. She does agree that they're well suited for each other, but she's not marrying him for love. She's going to marry him for power. The final festivities of Lupercalia are well on their way, and this turns out to be some kind of like Little Red Riding Hood type cosplay in the woods. All the women are dressed up in kind of lingerie with like a big red cloak over them, trying to look like I said, Little Red Riding Hood, and all of the men have like a wolf's head skin thing wrapped around them. I don't know. But they start running through the woods, and basically, the women have to catch the men. After that, you have a quick scene of Harvey and Roz kind of making out in his bedroom, and things are getting a little heated, but she kind of puts a stop on it for a moment, and he gets up because he's going to show her like some paintings he's done, some drawings, and as he does that, she starts to realize that her vision is completely gone. Suddenly, she's become blind. Back in the woods, Sabrina is in this clearing. She's supposed to meet Nick there, and instead she, hears that familiar sound of the wolf, and while she thinks the familiar has been killed, it turns out Nick couldn't actually go through with it. His familiar was pretty much all he had left after his family died, and it was really difficult for him, so he faked the fact that he killed her, and he just chained her up kind of in a cave. She apparently broke free, and she goes to attack Nick, and Sabrina ends up killing her. And then you've got this scene, and I mean, it was I guess it could have been kind of gory because they're both kind of covered in blood. There's a dead body there with them, but it was actually kind of sweet where he just kind of confides in Sabrina what happened, and he wants her to forgive him because he lied to her. And I'm a little impressed with where this relationship is going. I didn't fully trust him, to be honest, especially last season, but he seems to be really genuine this year. And that's pretty much where you end the episode. So this one was a lot of fun. Like I said, to me, so far, all the episodes just keep getting better and better, and I'm really liking this one. So I'm going to leave this one here, and we'll pick up in the next recap about the 4th episode.